In today's list, I am scouring my entire collection to share 10 pretty much perfect albums, a handful of which you are probably familiar with and some you most likely aren't. This list is diverse, from a few alt-rock classics to some deep-cut indie rock gems. Hell, I even threw in a rare, for me, hip-hop album and a post-punk masterpiece. Let's begin with one you're probably familiar with. Number 1, Siamese Dream by Smashing Pumpkins. One of the most personally pivotal albums in my collection, and this copy is an OG original pressing from 1993 on lavender vinyl. Others might argue that Melancholy would top Siamese Dream. While that album is a true masterpiece, to me, this one holds up more tightly from cover to cover. Produced by Butch Vig, whose production repertoire includes Nirvana's Nevermind, L7's Bricks Are Heavy. Vig had worked with the Smashing Pumpkins before on their album Gish from 1991. It's been noted that Billy Corgan had been quite heavily influenced by the shoegaze movement of the early 1990s while working on Siamese Dream, and you can definitely hear its traits within. I mean, the album occasionally gets tossed into all-time top shoegaze album lists, and for good reason. Originally drawn in by the popular track Today back upon its release in 1993, I would soon come to love every single track on this album. Number 2, 23 by Blonde Redhead. Now, Blonde Redhead is one of my all-time favorite bands, and their 2007 LP 23 is one that really propelled the trio into that spot in my mind. While I love pretty much their entire library of work, 23 seems different. It's one that, upon its release, wowed me almost instantaneously. Here's the thing. Some albums do that, right? It's like igniting magnesium. There's this massive burst of fire and passion and obsession, and then it fades. Sometimes quickly at that. My love for 23 has never really faded. In fact, it now sits on another pinnacle, my number 1 played vinyl record in the entirety of my record collection. Number 3 is perhaps the newest on the list, Hey What by Low. There's no shortage of truly phenomenal albums by dreamy, slowcore indie band Low. Hey What is the group's final album, released fall of 2021, 1 year prior to member Mimi Parker passing in 2022. What sets this album apart is its impeccable production. It's one where songs meld and blend together, turning and twisting in a way that makes them incredibly cohesive. The entire album is like that. There are a few standout tracks for sure, like More, Days Like These, White Horses, where others don't necessarily have that standalone, powerful temperament. They make up for in their ability to hold together the spaces in between. It's very rare that you have albums that can do that so seamlessly. Number 4, Joy Division, Unknown Pleasures. The chaos and tragedy behind the life of Ian Curtis has been covered to no end. The lasting impact of Joy Division's music cannot be understated. Ask anyone who the most influential post-punk bands are, and they're likely to throw this band into the mix. Unknown Pleasures, aside from having some of the most recognizable album art around, it's an album packed with stunning darkness. From fan favorites like Disorder and She's Lost Control and Shadow Play, Unknown Pleasures is precise and intricate and chaotic in all its erratic post-punk sensibilities. In the Aeroplane, Over the Sea by Neutral Milk Hotel. The grating vocals of Jeff Mangum aren't for everyone, but there's a surreal power behind In the Aeroplane, Over the Sea. The album has become a true cult classic, and it was front and center in the documentary of the famed underground Georgia Athens label Elephant Six Collective. This is probably the most despised album on this list due to its obscurity, the vocals, the fact that it's just really not that cool for most people. At the time of writing the album, Mangum had been absolutely devastated by reading for the first time Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. And as such, there are parallels to her tragic journey from song titles like Holland 1979 to the depiction of this outstretched arm illustrated on the cover that signifies something absolutely terrible. The more you dig into the album, the deeper you get, the more you discover. There's a world of emotion, of sex, of longing and love and trauma and shame here that isn't readily apparent at face value. That's what makes it so freaking brilliant. Number 6, Loveless by My Bloody Valentine. Now, I've scoured the internet, casually browsing countless lists of top shoegaze albums of all time, and there's one name, one band, one album that tops literally every single list you find. Loveless by My Bloody Valentine. The album defined the subgenre. The wall of noise that Kevin Shields was able to create and the emotion the band was able to evoke set them apart from their peers, and even topped the noise that the Jesus and Mary chain had created before them. Loveless is one of those albums that you just get if you enjoy the noisier side of rock and have a predilection towards emotionally centered music. Often paired in the top 3 with the likes of Souvlaki by Slowdive, typically a number 2, and Nowhere by Ride, typically number 3, those contemporaries still pale in comparison to this album right here. In fact, there really is no comparison. Number 7, and we're jumping all around here, This Year's Model by Elvis Costello. I was riding my bike this past weekend and I passed someone on the trail wearing an Elvis Costello shirt. It wasn't just any shirt, it was one depicting a young Elvis Costello early in his career when his music was more raw, a bit guttural, and frankly, the best he's created. Atop the pedestal, in my opinion, is his 1978 release, This Year's Model. This was my introduction to Elvis Costello, and I quickly amassed quite a collection of his work, and most of it honestly let me down. It's hard discovering an artist at the top of their game only to not really connect with their greater body of work. I still have a handful in my collection. My Aim Is True, Blood and Chocolate, a live bootleg circa 1979. But when I pull Costello from my collection to put it on my turntable, more often than not, This Year's Model is the one I pick. Number 8, Kid A. Now, I know this is Kid A amnesia, but Kid A nonetheless. I remember watching Radiohead perform the national anthem on SNL in 2000, the year Kid A was released. In it, frontman Tom York has this erratic dance in moments where vocals don't really exist. It's a freak out worthy of Ian Curtis. The one that really blew me away, though, was Idiotech. Watching Johnny Greenwood fiddle with a chaotic mess of electronic wires, all the dark electronic synth elements the band tosses in, and yes, another movement-oriented freakout from York. All those things just did it for me, and I connected quite deeply with the song. I vividly remember it just giving me chills. Kid A was so unlike anything I had ever heard at the time, perhaps only matched by some slight degree the trip-hop leanings of early Portishead. Having been a fan since the days of Pablo Honey, and having loved the Bends, and having completely devoured OK Computer, it was the drastic departure from these albums that made Kid A true masterpiece. And it's something that I stand by to this day. In my opinion, this remains the band's best album. I stand by that. We are down to the last 2, and it's finally time for that hip-hop album. Damn by Kendrick Lamar. From an outsider, it wasn't until I dug into 2 albums that I found how vivid storytelling can be in the overarching hip-hop and rap genres. The first album was Hiding Places by Billy Woods and Kenny Siegel from 2019. The second was Damn by Kendrick Lamar, 2017. Damn is thought-provoking, it's emotional, it tells a story, and it exposes the rough edges of growing up in America as a minority. In it, Lamar contemplates life and love and identity and wealth in a way I've heard pretty much no other artist do. And he does so with a precision that is unparalleled, not just in his own genre, but in music in general. Masterpiece. True masterpiece. And finally, number 10, Arcade Fire's Funeral. Funeral by Arcade Fire is an album that really kind of changed how many looked at indie rock, getting a stunning 9.7 rating from Pitchfork upon its release. It's no surprise that this album finds welcome home on this list. In the review penned by David Moore, he writes, "These songs demonstrate a collective subliminal recognition of the powerful but oddly distant pain that follows the death of an aging loved one." Listen to the album and there's plenty of sorrow and grief, but there's also adoration and respect and even celebration. This too, more notes. Even in its darkest moments, Funeral exudes an empowering positivity. I agree. What do you think? There's my list. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? And what's missing? Let me know down in the comments below. I might do a part 2 of this in the coming months. Dig into my top 10 albums that changed my life. You'll see Smashing Pumpkins on that list. As one person noted a few years back, this dude is a damn nerd. I am Andy. This is the FensePost Vinyl channel, and I'll see you in the next video.